Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today we're talking about all of the big problems going on in Chicago right now, as well as other news and notes around the NHL. Guys, thank you for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you follow us down below on our website, i80sports.com, for all of our NHL content, as well as all of our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, and NBA content there as well. You can also follow it here on our YouTube page. And if you're here on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for all of the content that we've got coming up. And this week, we're celebrating Halloween. We've had Halloween episodes come out all throughout this week. The entire I-80 Sports crew has had fantastic episodes so far. You definitely want to make sure that you check out all of our Halloween content this week. It's been a blasty blast of fun, to say the least, and we look forward to doing this every single year. So make sure that you drop some love on all of those Halloween episodes as well. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. And if you're following us already, thank you guys so much, because we greatly value all of your support. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well. And here we are to cover what's been a little bit of an interesting week in the league. You know, it's still early, but definitely an interesting week, and definitely some bombs dropped just today.
It's funny because coming into news weeks like these, Tom and I, have conversations back and forth almost every day of like, well, what are we going to talk about this week? Well, it might be a bit of a slow news week. And then it never fails. There was a bomb drop today. We didn't know when this bomb was going to drop. We always knew it was going to hit at some point, and we're going to get to it quite soon. The main focus of this episode certainly is Chicago, but before we get to Chicago, we have got to talk some other news around the league. So it's time for the traffic report.
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
Talking some NHL news here to start off with. If you're here to join us for the Chicago video, it's just a little bit further ahead, so you can always fast forward a little bit ahead to check out that news there. But we start first with some injury news here. Starting goaltender for the Ottawa Senators, Matt Murray, was injured over the weekend in a game against the Rangers. Tom, do you want to describe a little bit about what happened with this injury and why Chris Kreider is probably responsible again?
Well, let me preface it with this. Way back in 2014, when Chris Kreider ran into Carey Price and injured him, Chris Kreider was going full speed and was tripped up on the play before he slammed into Carey Price. So let's go now to Saturday afternoon in Ottawa. The Rangers were on the power play. Chris Kreider was where he always is on the power play, in front of the net. Chris Kreider received a pass and scored a goal without making contact. After the puck had gone into the net, Kreider's forward momentum and Murray's momentum sliding across the net led them to slam into each other. Kreider's knee hit Murray in the head, and he was injured. When I was watching the game at first, MSG analyst and Rangers analyst Joe Micheletti was thinking it was his groin. I was thinking so too. Apparently not. Apparently it's not even a head injury, it's a neck injury. Apparently the force of Kreider slamming into his head caused him to get whiplash, and that is what that's like the main factor now in his injury and going on the injured reserve list.
Yeah, and it only gets more and more rough right now for the Ottawa Senators. The goaltending situation was already not that great right now for the Ottawa Senators, at least with Matt Murray in the starting net this year. But beyond that, I'm thinking more so this year for the Ottawa Senators. Actually, I just want to pull up their depth chart real quick. I believe behind them, if I'm not mistaken, is Anton Forsberg. Am I correct there?
Oh, I have to look. I don't have it up either. Let me just do that real fast.
That's okay. I got it. Anton Forsberg is currently the backup right now for the Ottawa Senators. And so far, 4 games played, 3 starts. He's got 1 win, 2 losses, and he's got a sub-9 save percentage. He's got a save percentage of 885. a goals against of 480. It's a small sample size, but it's not a good sample size either here for Anton Forsberg. Playing also behind him is 23-year-old goaltender Philip Gustafsson. Still kind of green. Also doesn't sport the best stats at the moment. He has 1 start under his belt, but he has 2 games played total. He's got 1 win, 1 loss, save percentage of .898, and a goals against of .296. So I don't know. It's tough to say. Look, goaltending was already going to be a bit of an issue here for the Ottawa Senators. But that being said, they're a young team. They've got young goaltenders coming up soon. Philip Gustafsson is one of those young goaltenders that is on the rise as well. And in this case, coming up very, very soon. Now, it also would be, I would be remiss if I didn't say in terms of Matt Murray, in terms of his, start, 2 games under his belt, 2 starts, that is. He has 1 loss. He hasn't registered a win yet, but the stats are there. He has a .936 save percentage, a .160 goals against average. He's been great. He's been really, really good so far. So it's an unfortunate injury here for the Ottawa Senators, and hopefully they can bounce back from this. That's a rough injury to take. There's no timetable right now on Matt Murray's return, but we are going to monitor this over the course of the next week or so to see just when Matt Murray is going to be ready to return. Moving on, the Seattle Kraken played their very first home game this weekend, and it was quite spectacular. I got to say, it's a beautiful stadium. It was a beautiful show. It was everything that it could have lived up to be, and it's been a long time coming. Tom, do you agree? Do you disagree?
Agree completely. Seattle is most definitely a hockey town. They were the home of the first ever American team to win a Stanley Cup. They've supported junior teams throughout the years. They were a big, big, big market in the old WHL, which was a league that was challenging the NHL in the 1960s, and a league that CBS threatened to give a TV deal to unless the NHL expanded outside the original 6. So that was a catalyst for it. What I never understood is why didn't Seattle get a team earlier? Because they were really deserving of one. I don't understand why cities like Phoenix, Atlanta, I'm not going to say Dallas, because Dallas has definitely had good support over the years. Phoenix, Atlanta, Florida, even Carolina and Nashville, although they've been having good support as of late. I just don't understand why all those markets got teams before Seattle did, where Seattle would have been a solid NHL market for many, many years. And they will be a solid market now for now and into the future.
It's what it could have, should have at this point, but at the same time, congratulations to the Seattle Kraken on playing in your first home game. And I really hope the crowd continues to support the Seattle Kraken just like they did this past weekend. It's going to be a fun season for the Seattle Kraken for sure. The inaugural season is always a fun one, despite what the record is. So kudos to you guys. Beautiful stadium. Well done, Ronnie Francis over at the Seattle Kraken, the general manager, that is, of the Seattle Kraken. Before we move on to our big news stories of the day, we got some quick hits that we need to go through real quick. So Drew Doughty was injured in a knee-to-knee hit with Dallas Stars D-man Yanni Hakanpää. It didn't look intentional by the play, and it doesn't seem like Drew Doughty is going to miss any time, but it was significant just because it was kind of touch and go there for a little bit for Drew Doughty. It looked like he might be missing some significant time. Glad to hear that he is okay in this situation. The Ottawa Senators actually made a trade, a very kind of tiny trade, but not so tiny. They acquired Dylan Gambrell from the San Jose Sharks in exchange for the 7th round pick that San Jose actually traded them a while back. So Dylan Gambrell going to Ottawa, I'm going to be interested to see how he's used in Ottawa. He's certainly a young forward that could use a change of scenery from San Jose, especially for an up-and-coming Ottawa team. Going to be an interesting match there, something to monitor for sure. And then the last bit of our news on our quick hits, the New York Islanders have re-signed forward Ross Johnston to a 4-year, $4.4 million deal. He'll be earning on average $1.1 million per year. Decent deal here for the Islanders. It's a good depth forward to re-sign here, and also could be a factor in that bottom 6 for the next number of years to come. So I think this is a very safe signing here for the New York Islanders for sure. But it's time to talk our big news of the day. So, with that said, it's time to pump the brakes.
Not so fast. It's time to pump the brakes.
So, the Chicago Blackhawks. We were already going to be talking about the Chicago Blackhawks in this particular episode. And, well, now things have reached critical mass. Today is Tuesday, October 26th, at time of recording. So it was released today, the Jenner and Block report. And if you've had the chance to read this 107-page document, educate yourself. Go and read it. Though I will tell you to proceed with caution for those that are triggered very, very easily, for those that are recovering from sexual abuse, from sexual assault. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you in your recovery, but we do want to mention that there is a trigger warning here. Read with caution here. It's absolutely horrible what I read in this report. Needless to say, the Chicago Blackhawks have responded in regards to this report. And general manager, or should I say former general manager, Stan Bowman has stepped down as general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks because of all this. This is an utter mess right now. The assistant to hockey operations has also stepped down. Stan Bowman has also been relieved of his duties as general manager of Team USA for the upcoming Winter Olympics. So everything's a mess here for Chicago. If you've been watching any Chicago Blackhawks games, we alluded to it last week. They've been a mess on the ice. It's even more of a mess off the ice right now. So my question here is, Tom, what's next? What is next for the Chicago Blackhawks? Can things get better from here?
With this and the on-ice performance, I really don't know if they can. They're not playing well, and to have this happen doesn't make things any better. It doesn't. And you sit there, and you think about it, and you go back 11 years while this was happening, and they were in the process of playing their way to a Stanley Cup championship. I can't think of a better word to say than that. And they hadn't won a cup in 49 years. They had a fairly long drought. And a question that popped in my mind was if they weren't trying to, they weren't a cup favorite and trying to break this curse, would it have come out then? It's something that was really on my mind. Was everybody there being hush-hush because this team hadn't won a Stanley Cup in 49 years and we're on the brink of finally winning one? And back then, I mean, even though social media existed back in 2010, it was not as far advanced as it is now. Smartphones were in their infancy. More often than not, to access things, everyone was going on their laptop or their desktop when they got home from work to look up things. Maybe they had little apps on their regular phones, but it makes me wonder, with the hush-hush thing and them being so close to the cup, is that why it didn't come out back then? No one really knows. Right now, obviously, they've done their due diligence with the Blackhawks. Gary Bettman has said that he has already scheduled meetings with Mark Bergevin, Kevin Cheveldayoff, and Joel Quenneville. Joel Quenneville was the head coach at the time. Cheveldayoff and Bergevin were in the organization in different capacities. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what they were doing then. I'd have to look that up. I won't waste my time with that right now. So they're going to have to, they're going to have to get met with, and their fates will also be determined. It could very well be that they all won't have jobs, although from what Bettman has said, he's just having a meeting with them. He said that he'll discuss next steps, if any. So the key word there is if any, which means I think that those guys may be safe with this, but who knows? It's a terrible, terrible thing. And another thing is with guys like Bowman, if they ever want to get a job in the league again, they have to go under review by the league office before they're let back in to work for a team in the NHL. This isn't even just a team. This is the league has to approve them coming back in. So this is just a mess. This team, despite all this, has been a mess since they won that Stanley Cup in 2015. They haven't been able to get out of their own way. They had aging players. Now they have 2 contracts there in Taves and Cannon. I was reading something the other day about how they'll probably still keep Patrick Kane and sell tickets. Patrick Kane is still in his prime. Patrick Kane is still maybe one of the best players in the league. The team's been in decline, and for this to happen, Patrick Kane's got 1 year, one year. I was gonna say 1 year deal left, but that would have jumbled it. He's got 1 year left on his deal. My thing is, does Patrick Kane even want to stick around anymore after this? Does Jonathan Toews even want to stick around? Jonathan Toews has been a huge proponent of, making sure that nothing goes unsaid. When they had the shutdown in the bubble a few years ago due to police brutality, Jonathan Toews was one of the first people to say, yeah, we should not play today because of this. So how does this look for him? Now he's the captain and he's representing an organization that's dealing with something terrible like this. Do Toews and Kane just say, you know something? I don't care that I won 3 cups here. And we don't care that we're probably the 2 greatest Blackhawk players of all time. Apologies to Bobby Hull, Stan Mikita, and maybe Chris Chelios. And if you want to go further back, you can go further back. Do they just say, I want nothing to do with this anymore? And do they ask for trades they ask for either A, a trade at the deadline, B, a trade right now, or C, when their contracts are up, bye-bye, Chicago, I can't be involved with this. So just things to think about here.
There's a lot of emotions that go into a report like this. I mean, probably the first thing that I felt was angry at the entire organization and kind of angry in a sense that, those that are about to get investigated by Gary Bettman, Cheveldayoff, Quenneville, Cheveldayoff in this case, Kevin Cheveldayoff, that is, he is the current Winnipeg Jets GM, and he was the former assistant GM of the Chicago Blackhawks during this time. And as Tom had alluded to before, Joel Quenneville was the head coach during this whole endeavor when this whole thing happened. And I can't help but feel like I need to echo something that a lot of other broadcasters have echoed when they heard about this. And that's the higher-ups for the Chicago Blackhawks traded Stanley Cups. They traded accountability to win. And they traded, any kind of responsibility and accountability with this horrendous action in exchange for, clout, for glory, for Stanley Cups, for material possessions in this case. We're talking about a human life here. We're talking about a person, multiple people who were affected by this horrendous action. And you had higher ups that turned a blind eye to this and said, well, I care more about the chemistry of this team and the chemistry of our locker room to jeopardize their future and winning a Stanley Cup. And that's wrong. There are things that are more important than hockey. There are things that are more important than sports and health and mental well-being, physical well-being, emotional well-being. All of that is paramount, and all of that comes first. And those who were in charge of the Chicago Blackhawks at that point threw that out the window in pursuit of Stanley Cups. And that flat out is wrong. Flat out wrong. And if there were players that were also complicit in this and knew what was going on and didn't say anything, shame on them too. Because if Jonathan Toews knew, if Patrick Kane knew and said, you know what, I'm not going to say anything because I want to win now. If that's the case, they should retire now. Because any kind of stuff like that, I just don't tolerate. Now, that being said, probably not, though.
No, I think I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Interrupt you. I think, and don't quote me on this, I think Kane was interviewed earlier in the summertime and asked about it, and he said he had no knowledge of it.
Right. Like I said, there are those who are innocent in this situation. Needless to say, the NHL PR has come out and said that the Chicago Blackhawks have been fined $2 million for inadequate procedures and mishandling of the 2010 matter related to the conduct of former video coach Brad Aldrich, who is the culprit of all of this. But realistically, that's a slap on the wrist for Chicago Blackhawks. They make $2 million in their sleep. They'll make $2 million just tonight alone. It's a slap on the wrist, realistically. Stan Bowman has already been reprimanded quite a bit by this, and probably rightfully so. I will be very, very curious to see what happens in the investigation with Kevin Cheveldayoff, in the investigation with Joel Quenneville, and how this could eventually trickle down to those organizations that they're still affiliated with. Kevin Cheveldayoff is the current GM of the Winnipeg Jets, a very successful organization right now. Joel Quenneville is the current head coach of the Florida Panthers, the best team in the Atlantic Division right now. This could trickle down to other teams. This entire fiasco trickles down to a bunch of teams in the league right now. And the Chicago Blackhawks need, they deserve everything that they have coming to them in this case. They deserve it all. And to those that have suffered because of this, our hearts and prayers go out to all of those people. And for those that are listening right now that have been affected by, misconduct, sexual assault, talk to somebody. There's always people out there to help. And we cannot stress that enough. For those that feel like that you don't have a voice, that you cannot speak, seek help. There are many different organizations that are there to help you. There are different charities that are there to help you. There are different associations that will always hear your story out and bring those to justice. So for those that are currently suffering, please make sure that you seek help and even reach out to a loved one that you care for that can help out too. But we're going to keep monitoring this whole situation. Shame on Chicago in general. Moving right along to new topics of discussion. This is what the original episode was going to be about. And, well, we'll keep it short and sweet. Montreal, they're not doing so well right now. The Montreal Canadiens right now are 1-5 in 6 games played. As many know, the Montreal Canadiens went to the Stanley Cup final last year. So, Tom, I'll ask you, is it time to panic right now in Montreal, or do we just need to kind of weather the storm?
Well, I'm not particularly saying weather this. I am saying weather the storm, but I'm not saying weather the storm. I'm not saying it in a positive light, oh, okay, everything will be fine. No problem. Everything's good. It wasn't supposed to be good. The team went on a Cinderella run last year. I didn't think they were going to be a playoff team nor a Stanley Cup contender this year, and I don't think anybody else did either. You look at Montreal and you look at their history, and really their last 2 cups were basically because they got lucky. They've been a team over the years that seems to have gotten lucky and lucky and lucky and lucky. Well, I think the luck has finally run out up there, and maybe the luck ran out up there a few years back. This might just be the wake-up call this team needs. With some of the rules they have up there make no sense. You have to have a French-speaking coach, and you have to have this type of superstar. You have to have this type of player. It's just not working. This team has not been dominant since 1979. Discount to 86 and 93 cups. I said it already. I sound like a broken record. Those cups were won based on luck. Gretzky and the Oilers went out early in the 80s. In 93, everybody went out early. Lemieux. They lucked out in playing Buffalo in the second round because Boston had their number in the early 90s, and I'm convinced if they saw Boston in 93, Boston would have beat them. They lucked out there. But this team has turned into literally kind of like a hot goalie and, just throw a bunch of hodgepodge guys out there and see what happens. Well, look what's happened. They're going on almost 30 years without a Stanley Cup. And maybe, just maybe, and I said it a few weeks ago, that maybe if they have a terrible year this year, that maybe this is the wake-up call they need. Maybe they need to realize that despite being the Montreal Canadiens, they're an NHL hockey club in the year 2021. The mystique is not there anymore. There is no more Ken Dryden. There is no more Maurice Richard. There is no more Jean Beliveau, Howie Morenz, Doug Harvey, Guy Lafleur. I don't know, Henri Richard, Bernie Jeffrey. We can go on and on and on and on and on with this list. There's no Toe Blake behind the bench. The mystique is not there. The winning 5 Stanley Cups in a row in the 1950s, it's not like that anymore. The winning 4 in a row in the 70s with Scotty Bowman behind the bench, it's not like that anymore. The team sort of cheated in a way back then, not really, because it was just a 50-mile radius rule where they got all the best players in Montreal and the province of Quebec. That's just the way it was back then. But I don't mean to go off into this tangent, but maybe a bad year is just what they need. And maybe from ownership down, they need to look at what they have and say, okay, we need to start building this team, not like the Montreal Canadiens way, because the Montreal Canadiens way has not worked for years. We need to build this team like an NHL hockey team in the 21st century if we ever want to bring another Stanley Cup back to Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think it's time to panic quite yet in Montreal. I just don't think so. It's getting there, that's for sure. 1 win in 6 games is not a stellar start for a team that reached the Stanley Cup last year by any means. But that being said, there's still a lot to look forward to on this team. There's Nick Suzuki. There's Cole Caulfield. These are players that will contribute on this team. It's a matter of when they will. Some players get off to a slow start. It happens. You can't win the Stanley Cup in October. You can't win the Stanley Cup in November. Well, except for last year. But anyway, you can't win the Stanley Cup in the fall under normal circumstances. So let's pump the brakes just a little bit on Montreal, pun intended. But, there's still some missing pieces here in Montreal, and that also needs to be understood here. The last bit of pump the brake news here is, the Jack Eichel saga still continues. Why is this still continuing? So in this case, Jack Eichel is making one final push to the Buffalo Sabres organization to get the surgery that he wants. He wants a disc replacement surgery rather than a spinal fusion, which is what the Buffalo Sabres want him to do. He's making one final push to get the surgery that he wants. Tom, is he just doing this because Buffalo's winning right now? What's the deal?
I don't think he's doing it because Buffalo's winning. I think he wants to play. But he doesn't want to play there. He doesn't want to play there. He's planning to file a grievance with them. He does want to be traded. The problem with that is that nobody will take him unless he has that surgery. Buffalo is blocking him from having that surgery. So basically, let me put it in layman's terms. It's like if you are if you're a cab driver and a taxi cab needs 4 wheels to drive, right? And you're telling your boss the taxi cab has a flat tire and I want to take the tire and patch it. And the boss says, oh no, we want to plug it. Well, I want to patch. The driver and the boss argue. And basically the driver's saying, okay, well then if you don't want to do that, then drive the cab with 3 wheels. Well, the cab is undrivable with 3 wheels. And that's the situation we're in. Eichel can't play right now. We know that. In his current shape, he cannot play hockey. The problem is that Buffalo is sort of blocking him from playing. He doesn't want to play there, obviously. It's got nothing to do with them winning. He doesn't want to be there. It's no secret that he doesn't want to be there. We all know that. But you know what? He's right in a way to file a grievance. They're blocking him from doing his job because of something that they want, because they want something done their way and he wants something done his way. And because he can't get it done his way, he's being blocked from going somewhere else to play hockey. So, you know what? This grievance that's rumored, I think he is going to file it. And I think in a way he has every right to. And I think it's Buffalo being a little salty too, saying, you were our number one guy and we gave you that contract, but the team didn't win it all with him. So Buffalo's playing well without him. Yes. But I don't think he wants to be there regardless.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Jack Eichel is just being held hostage by the Buffalo Sabres at this point. I mean, Eichel is literally looking at any team right now. It's just like, hey, you guys looking for centers? Because like I can like play center. Like I could like totally play center for you. Like the poor guy just wants to play hockey at this point, and it's so wrong that Buffalo just won't give him what he wants. They're holding him hostage, plain and simple. You know, he's making one final push to get the surgery that he wants because he's looking at Buffalo. It's just like, look, this is going to help you. This is going to help me. I want to play hockey. I get the surgery that I desire. I can get back on the ice quicker. You can get the value from me from another team and get the trade done that you want to get done. So it's on Buffalo at this point. It's on the Pagulas to finally just say, all right, fine, do it. I just need, I want this to be done so bad for both Jack Eichel and the organization of Buffalo. Something needs to be done. Also, spoiler alert, potentially for next week, we could very well be talking about Buffalo next week if they continue to perform the way they're performing right now, because holy moly, who'd actually thought that Buffalo would actually be semi-good right now? But those are all the big news stories for this week, and whew, holy moly, what a headache. But it is time. It is that special time, as usual, to talk about our high performers of the week. So that being said, it's time for high performance.
Your I-80 Sports High Performance Players of the Week.
So we're talking to players of the week here. Tom, let's start with you. Who were some of the high performers in your mind this week?
Well, I guess the obvious one here is Connor McDavid. Again, he is just at a pace that's like unworldly right now. And I don't think he'll stay on this pace. But let's just play what if here. And if he were to stay on this pace, he would finish 1 point shy of Wayne Gretzky's 215 points in a season record. They talk about Ovechkin breaking that goal record. Imagine if McDavid had not even 215 points. Let's just say he just hits an even 200. Nobody could even do if your name's not Wayne Gretzky, nobody's ever done it. Mario Lemieux came close in 88-89 with 199 points. But Mario Lemieux couldn't even hit 200 points. So basically, if he does that, you talk about Ovechkin all you want, but that's over a career. McDavid gets 200 points in a season. That is something unworldly. And I'm going to say it right now. And you Pittsburgh fans and you Washington fans, you can burn my head at the stake if you want. But I'm saying right now, Connor McDavid is a better hockey player than Alex Ovechkin. And Connor McDavid is a better hockey player than Sidney Crosby. He is. He is. He might not have those championships. That's really not his problem. Edmonton, I still don't like how they're built, but hey, you never know. Maybe they'll figure it out one day. Maybe he'll win 1 or 2 or 3. If he wins 3 like Crosby, then he's obviously going to be better than Crosby. But I'll say right now, just based on talent and skill alone, he's better than the players of the previous era. Crosby and Ovechkin, he's better than them both. Say what you will. One more honorable mention before I turn it over to you. Lucas Raymond of the Detroit Red Wings had a nice 4-point night on Sunday against the Blackhawks. Excuse me. 3 goals, 1 assist. Obviously, the Hawks were a dumpster fire. Now we sort of know why they're a dumpster fire. But, man, good on him. And what a game for Lucas Raymond, I must say.
Absolutely. For me, the first star for me this week is actually who the NHL chose as well. Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets, 8 points this week. Way to go, my dude. He is just a performer, man. Kyle Connor is something else with the Winnipeg Jets. Next for me was Lucas Raymond, as Tom mentioned before. Congratulations on your first career hat trick. 19 years old. Maybe he is exactly what the doctor ordered here for the Detroit Red Wings. Next for me is Andrew Mangiapane of the Calgary Flames. He's playing in his 6th game right now against New Jersey Devils. It's, like I mentioned before, it's Tuesday right now. The Devils are playing Calgary. He has scored again for Calgary. That's 6 goals in 6 games thus far. And for those of you that, are a fan of on pace for, yeah, he's on pace to score 82 goals this season. Now that's probably not going to happen, but even still, that is quite a first 6 games for Andrew Mangiapane. And lastly, of course, as Tom alluded to before, Connor McDavid. I mean, I think more realistically, could he reach 150 points this year? I think it's entirely possible. 200 points would be amazing if he could do that. That's otherworldly if he could. 150 points is probably more realistic for him, which is still a stat that has not been seen in quite some time. So if Connor McDavid can do that, that would be a fantastic year for him. I think it is very possible that he could. He needs to stay healthy to do so. The rest of his team needs to stay healthy as well. Another honorable mention here for me on the Edmonton Oilers is Zach Hyman, who has also been fantastic for them as well. He has been a breath of fresh air for Connor McDavid to be able to set him up as well, rather than just Leon Draisaitl. So it's not just the two of them doing work now. It's Zach Hyman also doing the work too. So congrats to them. As we come to the end of our episode, it's time to wrap things up, of course, with the question of the day, which the question of the day today is simple. Does Montreal finally snap out of it? So, Tom, let's start with you. Does Montreal finally snap out of it or what?
You know what? I don't think they do. And to tell you the truth, I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. I really hope it's a wake-up call. And I'm going to harken back on what I said before. I really hope it's a wake-up call to this franchise. The fans up there deserve better. The people, the longtime Montreal fans were used to a certain thing. And even now, since we're getting so far away from 1993, I mean, if you look at a Hab fan in 1993 who was, say, I don't know, 12 years old for argument's sake, when, 12 years old, you start really realizing what sports are and stats and what goes in everything. So if you're 12 years old in 1993, 12 in 93, you're pushing 40 years old right now. And those 40-year-olds are the ones who have the memories of those championships. So you start getting the younger ages in that, and they pretty much grew up with the stories and the mystique and the films and the, all of that stuff. But they didn't grow up with a winning Montreal Canadiens club, with a winning Habs club. And maybe, just maybe, like I said before, maybe, just maybe, a really bad season will say that, okay, it really is time to start building this team from the top up, because it's something they never really did. Even in the 80s, I mean, if you even go into 1986, they still had guys like Bob Gainey and Larry Robinson there who they had picked up in the 70s. They still had some guys from the old C-Form days there, So many times with Montreal, they'll have a terrible year, and then they'll come back the next year and make the playoffs and go on a playoff run, or they'll come back the next year and finish in first place and, okay, well, all is forgotten, so we're just going to keep putting Band-Aids on the wound, just keep putting Band-Aids on the wound, but the wound is still open. And like I said before, and I'll say it again till I'm as blue as that stripe on their home jersey's face, this team needs to just be built from the bottom up. They need to tear it down. Obviously, keep Caulfield and Suzuki. Yes, by all means, do that. That's your future right there. But it needs to be completely torn down and rebuilt from the bottom up. And it may be painful, but you want to know what? This is the so-called New York Yankees of hockey. They are the team with a storied history with the most Stanley Cups, and they need to get back to that.
They do. And honestly, I do think that they eventually snap out of it, but this is a team that very sorely misses Carey Price right now. And honestly, he's in no rush to return, nor should he be with entering treatment. So Montreal needs to weather the storm right now. They need to just push through. Hopefully there are some wins on the horizon here for Montreal. We're just going to have to see. We'll monitor as the weeks go on to see if maybe the panic button gets hit early here for the Montreal Canadiens, but that's why the games are played. We just got to see what happens. But we've come to the end of another episode here at I80 Sports NHL. So that being said, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree? Do you disagree with our takes? You got to make sure that you let us know down below in the comments section. Sound off on all the other topics that we talked about in today's episode. And while you're there, drop a like and subscribe for all of our NHL content coming up. We have certainly been pushing on all cylinders so far, but you can also check out our content down below at i80sports.com. Not only can you find our NHL content there, you can also find our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, and NBA content there as well. And hey, if you like the hat that I'm currently wearing right now, you can check out our shop. It's right there in our shop. You can go get yourself a beanie just like this. The holiday season is upon us. We're starting to slowly go away from the Halloween season right now. We're right in the midst of the Halloween season right now, obviously. But we've got the holiday season on the horizon. We've got Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa coming up. So you got to make sure that you check out our shop. Get yourself a nice little gift for your loved ones this upcoming holiday season. Get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8 while you're there. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sportsNHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys for your support, because without you guys, we can't do this on a weekly basis. You guys are awesome. But it's time to move away from another episode here at I80 Sports. I'm Brian. He's been Tom. This has been yet another episode of NHL on I80 Sports.